Dad, perfect revents. Who did this to you? My hand gripped the cold metal bed rail. The fluorescent lights hummed above us. The smell of antiseptic burned in my nostrils. I stared at my daughter and felt anger rise up in my chest. Dorothy was a mask of bruises. Her left eye was swollen shut, purple and black. Her arm was in a cast, fingerprints bruised into her neck. She'd been silent when I walked in, but when I spoke, she broke. Her shoulders shook. Dad, her voice cracked. It was Timothy. He lost big at the casino again. His mother and sister held me down while She couldn't finish. I'm Harold Mitchell, 67 years old, and let me tell you something. That moment changed everything. The grief that had hit me when I first saw her, the shock, the fatherly horror, all of it drained away. What replaced it was pure determination. Very well, I said quietly. I'm going to show them they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Dorothy's good eye widened. Dad, no. You don't understand. They'll hurt you. They'll hurt Carol. Please, just stay away from them. I leaned forward and touched her cheek, the only part of her face that wasn't bruised. Trust me, sweetheart. I'm not the man they think I am. How could I have let this happen? How could I, Lieutenant Colonel Harold Mitchell, have been locked away while my daughter was being destroyed? How had I been so blind? The answer sat heavy in my gut. It had all started 18 months ago in the sterile silence of the place I called my prison, Sunset Manor. Vincent, my stepson, had been working on me for months before that. Little comments about my memory, suggestions that I was getting confused, worried looks when I forgot small things that any 65-year-old might forget. Then came the paperwork. Power of attorney, he said, just in case something happened, for my golden years, a safety measure. I'd been a fool. I'd trusted him. I signed those papers thinking I was being responsible. Within a week, I was at Sunset Manor for a short stay, while we figure things out. That was 18 months ago. My bank accounts were frozen. My freedom was gone. Vincent visited once a month, smiled his fake smile, patted my hand, and told me how lucky I was to be in such a nice facility. Meanwhile, he was billing my insurance and draining my savings to pay for a place I never wanted to be. But I wasn't helpless. I was waiting and learning. You see, they thought because I was 67, I didn't understand technology. They were wrong. During my 25 years in the Army and 15 years as an IT security consultant, I'd kept up with everything. When the young nurses left their tablets unattended, I was watching. When the staff computers were logged in, I was memorizing passwords. When they thought I was napping, I was planning. At 5 in the morning, I'd been awake for an hour already, finishing the routine I'd maintained since boot camp. 20 wall push-ups, 50 crunches, my breath measured, my mind clear. My body was 67 years old. It didn't feel weak. It felt ready. I'd been pulling on my cardigan when the young nurse Ruth knocked and entered without waiting. She was new, nervous, her hands uncertain as she measured medications. "Nurse," I said, cutting through the quiet. She jumped. "That's metformin for a hypoglycemic patient. You'll put him in a coma. Check your chart." Ruth's face went pale. She looked down, recalculated, and her hands began to shake. "Oh my God, you're right. I'm so sorry, Mr. Mitchell. It's Colonel Mitchell," I corrected, not unkindly. "And you're welcome. Now go fix it before someone dies." She fled. I watched her go. This happened at least twice a week. The staff was overworked and undertrained. They made mistakes. I caught them. It kept my mind sharp and reminded me that experience still mattered. The phone call came at 6:15. The front desk receptionist knocked, her face apologetic. "Mr. Mitchell, there's a call for you. It's General Hospital. Something about your daughter." I took the phone. The voice on the other end was professional, careful. "Is this Harold Mitchell, father of Dorothy Brooks?" "Yes. Your daughter has been admitted to the emergency department. She fell down the stairs. We need you to come in." Fell down the stairs. The lie was obvious. My military training kicked in immediately. I knew the patterns. Domestic violence victims always fell. They always walked into doors. They were always so clumsy. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said, and hung up. But there was a problem. Vincent wouldn't approve my exit. He'd say I was confused, that I needed to stay safe. He'd refused to authorize an emergency release. I made one call. My voice was calm, the voice of a man calling in a debt. "Get me Dr. George Phillips, Chief of Staff at General Hospital." Then a familiar voice, rough with age and cigarettes. "This is Phillips. George, it's Harold Mitchell." There was a pause. Harold. "Good Lord, it's been years. What do you need?" "I'm at Sunset Manor. I need out now. My daughter's in your ER and I know she didn't fall down any stairs. I'm calling in that favor from Kandahar." George didn't ask questions. He remembered the night I'd kept pressure on his femoral artery for 3 hours while insurgent fire prevented medevac. "Some debts transcend paperwork. Emergency specialist consult," he said finally. "I'll make it look official. 30 minutes. Thank you, George. Don't thank me. Just be careful, Harold." When the official hospital transport arrived 90 minutes later, the Sunset Manor manager protested. He waved my admission papers, mentioned Vincent's instructions. The transport nurse simply handed him the General Hospital request form with George's signature. I walked past him, carrying nothing but my wallet and the clothes on my back. Now I was here, standing at the foot of Dorothy's hospital bed. I picked up the chart and scanned it with practiced eyes. During my IT security consulting, I'd worked with enough military hospitals to read these things. Ulnar fracture, multiple deep tissue contusions, cracked 7th rib, mild concussion. The injuries told a story I knew by heart. Dorothy started to speak, her voice small and broken. "Dad, I'm so clumsy. I just tripped and—" "Stop!" My voice cut through her lie. "I've seen enough casualties to know the difference between a fall and a fist." Her face crumpled. The lie died on her lips. And then she told me everything. Timothy, his gambling addiction, the late nights at the casino, the money disappearing from their joint accounts, the rage that followed every loss. He'd been getting worse for months, she said, her voice shaking. The first time he'd hit her, he'd cried afterward, begged forgiveness, promised it would never happen again. But it had, again and again. And then his family had gotten involved. Helen, his mother, a cruel, bitter woman who treated Dorothy like a servant. She screamed at her for every perceived slight, told Timothy that Dorothy was lazy, useless, that he should keep her in line. Nancy, his sister, was cut from the same cloth, sharp-tongued and vicious, always ready to pile on, always eager to humiliate. And the worst part, Dorothy said, her voice dropping to a whisper, was what they were doing to Carol, my granddaughter, 10 years old, small for her age, quiet and afraid. Helen's grandson Bradley bullied her constantly, taking her toys, pushing her, calling her names. The adults encouraged it. They laughed. They told Carol she was too sensitive, that she needed to toughen up. I felt the anger spread through my chest, but I kept my face still, my voice calm. "Go on?" Dorothy hesitated, then continued. "The strangest part, Dad, about a year ago, I overheard Helen fighting on the phone with a bank. She was screaming about offshore accounts and hidden assets, something about money Timothy's father left that Timothy didn't even know about. She said it was hers, that no one could touch it. I think it was around $180,000. I filed that information away. A puzzle piece clicking into place, hidden assets, offshore accounts. Interesting. I looked down at my daughter, at her broken body and shattered spirit, and I made my decision. My face was set, but my voice was steady. You're staying here. You have a severe concussion, and your memory is foggy. Dr. Phillips will confirm it. You're safe. I'm going to your house." Dorothy's good eye widened. "Dad, no. They'll hurt you. Timothy will—" "Timothy," I said quietly, "is about to learn what happens when you corner a wolf and mistake him for a sheep. I'm going to your house. I'm going to protect Carol, and I'm going to gather evidence." I leaned down, kissed her forehead gently, and walked out of the room. The address led me to a 2-story house in the suburbs. From the outside, it looked normal enough, but when I opened the front door with the spare key Dorothy had given me years ago, the smell hit me first. Stale beer, old food, something sour and unwashed. I stepped inside. The living room was a disaster. Empty pizza boxes stacked on the coffee table, dirty dishes piled on every surface. The carpet was stained and crusted with who knows what. 2 women were sprawled on a sagging sofa, eyes glued to a television, blaring some reality show. The older one, heavy-set with dyed blonde hair and a cigarette dangling from her lips, barely glanced at me. The younger one, thinner with dark roots showing through bad highlights, didn't look up at all. "Oh, it's you!" The older woman's voice was flat, bored. "Helen," I assumed. "Well, Dorothy's not here. You can sleep on the pullout. The kitchen's a mess. Make yourself useful." I set my jacket down carefully and didn't respond. Then I heard it, a small choked sob from somewhere deeper in the house. I walked past the women without a word and followed the sound. It led me to a small room off the kitchen, barely more than a closet. Inside, sitting on the floor in the corner, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 10 years. Old, pale skin, dark circles under her eyes. She was clutching a headless doll, staring at nothing. Carol. I was about to kneel down and speak to her when I heard the stomp of feet behind me. A boy, maybe 12 years old, burst into the room. He was big for his age, with a mean twist to his mouth. He saw Carol and grinned. "Hey, stupid! You still crying?" He reached down and grabbed the doll from her hands. She made a small, helpless sound, but didn't resist. The boy held the doll up, laughing. "This is a piece of junk anyway." He grabbed the doll's remaining arm and started to twist it, preparing to rip it off. I moved, not with military precision this time, but with the authority of a grandfather who'd had enough. I simply took the boy's wrist in my hand, firm, but not painful. "We don't steal from little girls," I said quietly, "and we don't break their toys." The boy, Bradley I assumed, looked up at me with shock. No one had ever stopped him before. I held his gaze until he dropped. The doll then released his wrist. I picked up the doll and handed it back to Carol. "Here you go, sweetheart. Grandpa's here now." The sound brought the women running. Nancy burst into the room, her face twisted with rage. "What do you think you're doing? Get away from my son!" She lunged at me, nails extended like claws, going for my face. But I was ready. I simply stepped aside and caught her wrist, applying just enough pressure to a nerve point to stop her cold. Her hand went numb, and she stumbled backward, stunned. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "your nails are filthy, and you're teaching your son very poor manners." Helen appeared in the doorway, her face purple with fury. She grabbed an iron poker from the decorative fireplace set in the living room and brandished it like a weapon. "I'll teach you to come into my house and—" I didn't let her finish. I took the poker from her hands as easily as taking candy from a child, then bent it into a U-shape using the brick mantle as leverage. The groan of twisted metal filled the silence. "This house," I said calmly, "is under new management. Rule 1, you will not touch Carol. Rule 2, you will not touch me. Rule 3, this place is a health hazard. Nancy, you're on floors. I want this carpet vacuumed by tonight. Helen, you're on dishes, every single one. And Bradley, you're going to sit in that chair and think about how we treat people smaller than us." Bradley opened his mouth to protest. I looked at him. He closed it and sat down. For the next 2 hours, I worked. I gave Carol a bath, washed her hair, and found clean clothes in a dresser that looked like it hadn't been touched in months. I made up a small bed for her in what had once been a guest room. She didn't speak the entire time, just watched me with wide, frightened eyes. Downstairs, I could hear the women moving around, whispering furiously. I ignored them. But I was also working on something else. While they thought I was just playing house, I was setting up the real operation. You see, during my 25 years in the Army and another 15 as an IT security consultant, I'd learned that the best weapons aren't always guns or fists. Sometimes they're laptops and smartphones, and the ability to follow digital breadcrumbs. I'd noticed Timothy had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter, probably too drunk or angry to remember to close it. And Helen's purse was sitting right there, phone charging next to it. People Timothy's age, they think they understand technology. They don't understand how much they're actually revealing. While I puttered around the house, playing the harmless old grandfather, I was actually installing monitoring software, nothing illegal, just the kind of family safety apps any concerned parent might use. The kind that track location, monitor communications, record ambient audio for safety purposes. By dinner time, I had eyes and ears on the whole family. At 7 p.m., I called them to the table. I'd made spaghetti and meatballs. Nothing fancy, but edible and clean. Helen, Nancy, and Bradley came in cautiously. They were starting to realize I wasn't the pushover they'd expected. "Sit," I said simply. They sat. As we ate, I listened. Bradley complained about school. Nancy griped about her job at the insurance company. Helen complained about everything. But what I was really listening for was information. Habits, schedules, weaknesses. Helen mentioned Timothy wouldn't be home until late. Another poker game. Nancy let slip she had access to client files at work. Bradley bragged about taking things from smaller kids at school. I filed it all away. Intelligence Gathering 101. At 9 p.m., I put Carol to bed. She still hadn't spoken, but she let me read her a story. When I tucked her in, she finally whispered, "Are you going to stay?" "Yes, sweetheart," I told her. "Grandpa's going to make everything better." I was awake when Timothy Brooks came home. I heard the car first. Engine too loud, brakes squealing. Then, footsteps, uneven and heavy. The front door didn't open. It was kicked. "Dorothy!" The voice was slurred, thick with alcohol and rage. "Get me a beer." The door swung open and he staggered in. Timothy Brooks, 38 years old, 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, running to fat. His shirt was untucked, his tie loose and crooked. His face was flushed red, his eyes bloodshot. He smelled like whiskey and cigarettes and something sour underneath. He saw me and stopped, squinted, swayed slightly. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm Dorothy's father," I said calmly. "Your wife is in the hospital. I'm here to watch Carol." He stared at me for a long moment, his brain processing through the alcohol fog. Then his face went dark. "You're the old man Dorothy's always crying about?" "Her father?" "That's correct." He took a step toward me, his hands clenched into fists. "Get out of my house." "No." The word hung in the air between us. He wasn't used to being told no. He moved fast for a drunk man, his arms sweeping up in. A wide, drunken swing aimed at my head. But here's the thing about being 67 years old with military training. You don't waste energy on unnecessary movement. I simply stepped back out of range, let his momentum carry him forward, and watched as he stumbled over the coffee table and crashed into the wall. For a moment, he just lay there, stunned. Then he roared, a sound of pure animal rage. He pushed himself up and lunged at me again, arms outstretched, trying to grab, to overpower, to hurt. This time, I didn't even move. I just held up my phone, the red recording light clearly visible. "Smile, Timothy. You're on camera." He froze. Even drunk, he understood what that meant. "You see," I said conversationally, "I've been documenting everything since I got here. Your family's behavior, this house, your threats. And in about 30 seconds, this video is going to automatically upload to a secure server. Even if you break my phone, it's already too late." His face went from red to pale. "You can't. That's illegal." "Actually, it's not. I'm protecting my granddaughter in what appears to be an unsafe environment. Any lawyer will tell you that's perfectly legal." I smiled. "And speaking of lawyers, I think it's time you and I had a serious conversation about your financial activities." Now he looked confused. "What financial activities?" "The money you've been stealing from your clients' investment accounts to pay gambling debts. The forged documents, the unauthorized transfers." I wasn't guessing. I'd spent the evening going through his laptop. Timothy wasn't nearly as clever as he thought he was. Should I go on? His mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to sit down, you're going to sober up, and tomorrow morning you're going to sign some papers. Divorce papers giving Dorothy full custody of Carol, papers terminating your parental rights, and a confession about your embezzlement activities. You're crazy." "I'm not signing anything." I held up my phone again. "Then I guess the State Bar Association gets a very interesting package tomorrow morning, along with your employer, and the police, and every local news station." I paused. "Did you know your mother has been hiding offshore accounts from you? Nearly $180,000 your father left. She's been letting you destroy your family while sitting on almost $200,000. The look on his face was priceless. Confusion, rage, betrayal, all mixed together. "That's impossible. Mom said we were broke. Your mom said a lot of things. But bank records don't lie. I'd found those too, buried in Helen's old email accounts. Amazing what people think is permanently deleted. Want to see the statements?" He sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "This is impossible. This is all impossible. Timothy, I said gently, you have a choice. You can sign those papers and disappear quietly, maybe even get some help for your gambling problem, or I can destroy your life, completely and publicly. Your choice. He looked up at me with hatred in his eyes. And if I sign? What guarantee do I have that you won't ruin me anyway? You have my word as a soldier and a father. Sign the papers, leave our family alone, and this all stays private. Continue to threaten or hurt my daughter or granddaughter, and I'll unleash everything I've got. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Good man. Now go to bed. And Timothy? I waited until he looked at me. Sleep on your side. You'll breathe easier. He stumbled up the stairs without another word. The next morning, I made breakfast for Carol. Real breakfast, eggs and bacon and toast. She ate like she hadn't seen food in days, which, given the state of that house, she probably hadn't. Helen and Nancy came down around 10, looking hungover and defeated. The fight had gone out of them. They knew the game had changed. We need to talk, Helen said. Yes, we do. I poured myself coffee and sat across from her. Let's talk about those offshore accounts. Her face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Account number 774-B. Roughly $180,000. Your late husband's life insurance and investments hidden in the Cayman Islands? I slid a printout across the table. Care to explain to your son why you've been lying to him? Timothy had come downstairs just in time to hear this. The look he gave his mother could have melted steel. You told me we were broke, he said quietly. You told me I had to keep gambling to try to win money back. You made me hurt Dorothy for grocery money. And you've had $180,000 the whole time. Helen started to stammer excuses, but Timothy wasn't listening. He was finally seeing his family for what they really were. The papers, he said to me. Where are the papers? I already had them drawn up. Another skill from my consulting days. Dorothy got full custody. Timothy terminated his parental rights. And he agreed to pay $45,000 from his mother's hidden accounts as a settlement. This is extortion, Helen said. This is justice, I replied. And it's a bargain. I could have asked for all of it. By noon, everything was signed. Timothy packed a bag and left without another word. Helen and Nancy would keep their money, but they'd stay away from our family. 3 weeks later, I sat in Dorothy's new apartment, a bright, clean place with windows that actually let in sunlight. She was healing, color returning to her face. Carol was playing with new toys, laughing for the first time in months. My phone buzzed. Vincent, my stepson, wondering when I'd be returning to Sunset Manor. Never, I said into the phone. I've hired Patricia Morgan as my attorney. She's filed elder abuse charges against you. The state is investigating. Your power of attorney has been revoked, and I've moved in with my real family. There was silence on the other end. Vincent, you made the same mistake Timothy made. You thought I was helpless because I was old. You were wrong. I hung up and looked around the apartment we'd rented with Timothy's settlement money. Dorothy had her life back, Carol had her childhood back, and I had my family back. That's worth more than any amount of money hidden in any offshore account. Sometimes the best revenge isn't striking back. It's proving that experience and intelligence will always defeat arrogance and greed. Age doesn't make you helpless. It gives you the wisdom to know exactly where your enemies are most vulnerable.